Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about The Flash issue 27 by Mark Waid, Christopher Cantwell, Vasco Georgiev and Matt Herms. The Flash's time-traveling adventure to help Impulse continues as Bart has found himself in 1900s Russia, where Max Mercury, who's going by Whip Whirlwind in this world, rants about Darkseid's glory and the Omega Speed he has been gifted. He declares that the Speed Force must die, and then, through the power of the Omega, he will be the fastest being in existence. Alongside this now villainous Max is Saturn Girl, Cosmic Boy, and Lightning Lad, who Impulse soon realize are not the legion of superheroes he knows and looks up to. There's something else. Getting all the story lowdown from the POV of Bart is kind of great, since Waid and Cantwell let the artist Vasco get really fun with the exposition, visualizing it as kind of like small chibi anime characters as he goes through explaining how Darkseid took over the future and the Legion and turned them evil. Another thing I really like is Max getting to use the name Whip Whirlwind again. It's been a minute since he's actually used that name, and I kind of like that, you know, we're set in the 1900s, so he's going to use like an old school superhero nickname. The Legion order Max to prove his loyalty to Darkseid by killing Impulse, but the young hero is able to escape, almost running right into Wally, who's a bit discombobulated from the explosion that he and Impulse caused arriving in this timeline. Wally chases after Impulse, and as they run, Wally senses that there is something very wrong with the Speed Force, since when they entered it, he felt it hurting. Max soon catches up to Wally as they run across a lake, pulling him into the cold depths of the water to try and drown the hero. I'm liking how Flash and Impulse have different ways of dealing with the whole alternate timeline thing. Impulse actually kind of knows what's going on and is immediately just kind of running from it. He doesn't really want to have to deal with that, but Wally knows that they have to because of the ramifications of what would happen if they just let a timeline like this lie. You know, he's kind of just running around trying to patch up all of the damage Impulse is doing, and a little later on in the book they refer to Impulse as a bull in a china shop, and that is exactly what he is. Wally punches Max in the face, breaking free as he swims up to the surface at Mach 12, which blasts him out of the water and high into the sky, with Max still hanging on to him. Doing this makes Wally realize that even with the Speed Force in pain, they are moving faster in the past thanks to Time Trapper slowing down the timeline in an effort to stop Darkseid and his takeover of Earth. That's cool that Time Trapper's story is still affecting some of these tie-ins and adding a type of unknown variable to the adventure, like here where the Flashes are actually faster in the past than they are in the present. Wally dumps Max on the ground, but Lightning Lad swoops in and punches Wally out of the sky, grabbing him and tossing him to the ground like a rag doll. The Legion say that they need to capture Impulse too, and Saturn Girl tells Yellows that she has already sent her after Impulse. There's a great bit here where, like at the start of the issue, Max goes on a little bit of a rant wanting the Omega Speed. He wants to be blessed by Darkseid's touch, and he practically begs the Legion to call him one of their own, and they won't. They call him a filthy peasant. They have no interest in him joining them, or they just want him to do their bidding, and I quite like that dynamic, that the villains have kind of like a pecking order in the Darkseid's world. Meanwhile, Impulse tries to get a lay of the land, running alongside the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Figuring from the train, he's somewhere in Siberia, but before he can get a better idea of his location, Impulse is punched at speed by the Legion version of XS, whose hit slams Impulse hard into the ground, knocking him out. XS making an appearance is quite fun, since it adds a couple extra ties and stakes to the Legion story here, which up until now have been predominantly Superman tied. But XS being the Legion member that the Flashes have to tangle with in the story is great. There's great familial drama, like XS being here. What does that mean for the future versions of like Barry and Iris's children? What happened to Barry and Iris? It's really interesting to think about. XS tells the other Legion members that Impulse is down, as Wally tries to talk Max down as he speeds around Wally, keeping him contained in one area. Max doesn't care if Wally knows him or not, since the speed Wally uses is corrupt and only the Omega Speed is the right and true speed. Wally tires of trying to talk him down and breaks out of the containment thanks to his souped up speed, speeding off before anyone can say anything, but not before taking Cosmic Boy's Legion flight ring. I really quite like that Wally has been holding back, like he knows that the Speed Force is faster for him now in the past, and he's just been kind of holding back because he knows that these are all, friends and allies, or they usually are his friends and allies. Max and the Legion are his friends, and now he's kind of realized, okay, everyone's kind of messed up, the timeline needs fixing, we've got to do this, so he just kind of locks the fuck in and just easily gets away from the villains because he's that much faster, because the Omega Speed is kind of a sham, it's kind of nothing at the moment. Using the ring, Wally takes off into the air and flies off, searching for Bart. As Wally flies through the air, he goes over what the villains had said while he was trapped in Max's vortex, knowing Darkseid is trying to replace the Speed Force with his own type of Omega Speed. This means that reality is currently fragile, and the longer he and especially Bart are there, the more chances they have at breaking time and reality, so they need to get home quick. Bart meanwhile recognizes XS as his cousin Jenny, but she has no clue who he is, citing how the Legion are her family. I wonder if we'll actually get to see any of Darkseid's takeover of the future. We've seen hints at it, as well as hints at like the larger war between the Legions, because the Legions went from universe to universe, destroying the other legions of superheroes, but we never really got to see much of it in its prime, so I'm hoping we maybe get to see that and like what happened to the Flash's history that allowed that takeover of XS and like allowed her to become a Legion member. XS does a little posturing to Bart, telling him that the Omega Speed puts the Speed Force to shame and is so much faster. Bart proves her wrong as the hero speeds off into the nearby train. XS chases after him and corners him in one of the carriages, and she asks him to join the Legion and Darkseid as Wally lands on the train, still pursued by the other Legion members. Wally isn't too pleased that Bart entered the train full of innocent people, but figures with the Legion after him and XS about to hurt Bart, he has no choice but to change history. XS keeps trying to convince Bart to join them, but he becomes confused when she says Darkseid is, thinking that she just kind of stopped mid-sentence. This is pretty funny since it's equal parts Impulse kind of rage baiting XS, equal parts him being a little bit stupid, and also the writers getting a little bit meta, because obviously this is something set up long ago by the likes of like Tom King and Jeff Johns, and it is kind of a silly thing to say Darkseid is. Like, I get what it means he's everything, but you could literally just add that last word on. You just gotta, it feels like they took that last word off and just said Darkseid is, just to be a little bit pretentious. Wally turns up and XS knows Darkseid wants him dead, dropping Bart and attacking Wally, who easily dodges her blow and blasts her off the train. There's some great bits of drama here between Wally and Bart, since Wally actually gets mad and berates Bart for his foolish time-traveling adventure, as it's completely messed up everything, and him jumping on this train has made it even worse, since now with hundreds of people around them, it's also altered hundreds of other people's histories too, leading to a very big domino effect to start to happen. It's good Bart is being put in his place, since he did do something foolish and needs to learn the lesson, but the one problem I'm getting though is that he hasn't had that moment of, oh fuck, I have messed up. He hasn't had that moment at all yet, and I'm sure Wade and Kent will have that moment planned at some point. I just feel it should have come by now, like he should have realized that he has messed up, because he's still very staunchly on the fact that, no, we're heroes, we can change the future and the past, and we should if we have to. It's a very, childlike, read on the situation, which is understandable. He is a child, but it's also, this is Impulse. It's a character who's been around for a while and had a long history. These are things he should already know not to do. Bart fires back at Wally, telling him that they are heroes and they need to change history and try to fix it. Their argument is interrupted by the Legion, who peel the roof off of the train and go to attack them, but Wally stops them, since if they electrify the train cart, they will kill everyone on the train. Lightning Lad doesn't really seem to care, and as Bart rushes around to tell everyone to get their hands and feet into the air, he screams at them in Russian, saving them from Lightning Lad's powers. Wally grabs a passenger's duffel bag, tossing it at Lightning Lad and knocking him out of the air. Wally is actually impressed that Bart learned how to talk Russian. Learning the boy was bored on the watchtower, so he sped read a bunch of language dictionaries. The heroes get to work evacuating the train, and it only takes 2 seconds, but while checking for stragglers, the Cosmic Boy attacks the heroes, lifting the train several hundred feet into the air with his magnetic powers. XS meanwhile realizes that she knows how to take down the Allens and the Wests, and permanently for that matter, wanting the Legion to head to Central City when the lightning strikes Barry Allen in his lab. So this is kind of a cool turn of events. The Legion are going directly for the source of all of the West's and Allen's powers, the lightning strike that gave Barry his powers all those years back. I do have to wonder though why that wasn't the initial premise of this storyline. Like that itself is a premise. These villains are going back in time to try and stop Barry from becoming the Flash, and thus leading to like Impulse not being born or not being existing, Wally not getting his powers, all that sort of stuff. It would save them a lot of hassle. And that was kind of the Legion's MO to begin with, where they were sort of working in the shadows, going back and forth from history, changing little things before Superman found out about them in his ongoing. So I don't understand why they didn't do that initially, especially because the Flashes are all time travelers. They've all part of the time travel timeline of the DC universe. So why would you not want to take them out first? Take out like some of your biggest opponents first. It's very strange that this is now where the story is headed, particularly when the story we already have is that story. It's just kind of doing the same story twice. Wally watches the Legion jump away in their time bubbles, unable to follow them as the train they are still on smashes into the ground, blowing up. Wally luckily cushioned himself and Bart with his Speed Force aura, but only just barely. He goes to check on Bart, hoping the boy will follow his orders now, but Bart refuses to, since he's not Wally West or another Flash, he's just himself. See, I don't think that's kind of a good enough reason not to, like, fuck with the timeline. Like, Wally should kind of just give him a slap and be like, that's not a good enough reason. We're going to fix this now and you're going to listen to me. Bart feels something is wrong, finding that his powers are all gone, making him think that the Speed Force is dead, but Wally can still sense it and can still sense its hurt. However, Bart cannot, meaning he has been cut out of the Speed Force completely. Wally knows that it was the Legion and they changed Bart's past somehow, and to rectify it, they're going to need to find Barry Allen quickly. As I said before, I guess this is where the story has shifted to now, to saving the Flash's history. That was the entire premise of the book kind of to begin with, so we're kind of just doing the same story twice, and you should have just started with, you know, we've got to save Barry Allen or got to save the past somehow. You could have easily have done that as the main story and kept all of the focus on Impulse and like him making rash decisions a key factor in that storyline. But that also being said, that really hasn't come back at all. Like, we haven't really spent a lot of time with Bart and like what's going through his head, mainly because this is a Flash book and Wally is the main Flash. But it's just very strange how we have all of these stories and they're very similar and they're just kind of mashing them together. They're not working together because they are the same story. It's just kind of repeating themselves and using Impulse as a MacGuffin who caused the problem, and Wally has to come in and sort it out. The Flash issue 27 was alright. It started off great with the heroes battling the Darkseid Legion and, you know, learning a bit about the Omega Speed, but then we got literally no meaningful movement on Bart's story of him actually learning something. Instead, he kind of doubles down and thinks that he is right in changing the past, even though everything he's done so far has just completely ruined everything. Now, with the cliffhanger ending, repositioning the story to be all about the Flash's history, I'm wondering why that wasn't the initial story to begin with. It was like Wade and Cantwell had a few too many similar storylines and they just tried to blend them all together, but instead it came out as this kind of rather goopy, separated mess. I'm hoping with the Jay Garrick versus Guy Gardner All Fight Month round next issue, things get put together a little bit better, but otherwise this background story of them trying to fix the timeline is very, very wonky at best. I'm going to give this issue a 6.5 out of 10.